Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local. Hello again, everybody. This is Greg, Mike, and David with the Near Memo, where we talk about search, social, and commerce through a local lens. And this week, of course, we'll be talking about AI once again. We'll also be talking about local news and the future of local news in the context of social media, and have we reached peak GBP? So has Google fully penetrated its addressable market with Google Business Profiles? So I'm going to lead off with the AI item this week, which is the appearance of AI-generated reviews on Amazon. They're starting to show up on multiple platforms. David, I believe you were the one that pointed me in the direction of this story, and there have been a couple of stories since that time. In particular, I think on Monday I wrote about this kids workbook. Was a academic skills workbook, and and there were several other examples of this. This was a verified purchase review on Amazon, which are supposed to be sort of more trustworthy, and it contains the very obvious language as an AI language model. I do not have personal experience using the workbook. Which was sort of humorous and very embarrassing, and indicates that this very verified purchase system that Amazon is using can be easily spoofed and or penetrated. And previously, what people were doing is that they were working around that by giving buyers incentives. So people would buy things and maybe return them, or buyers got incentives to write reviews. So that whole system was corrupt or corruptible to begin with. But this is sort of a new level, and it really raises the question in my mind as we start seeing these show up on Google and Amazon, and I don't think Yelp at this point, but other places undoubtedly. What is the future of reviews look like? Now, people will get smart and start doing the better version, not just simply cutting and pasting some verbatim thing that they got from ChatGPT or its equivalent. But it's kind of depressing, because this just suggests that the spam will, that the whole fake reviews problem will get much, much worse, because you can generate fake reviews at scale, which we've talked about in the past. And, it could be done, some of these offshore review farms can start pumping out all these kind of convincing sounding reviews. And it seems like we're just going to have to deal with it somehow.
I think that the issue goes beyond individuals copying and pasting. I assume it's bots copying and pasting, like you said, non-English speaking people who don't know what the reviews say. But clearly, somebody who's took the time to enter it in GPT wouldn't be copying and pasting it.
Well, I metaphorically speaking.
Got it. Okay.
An unedited verbatim copy.
Yeah.
I mean, you can just use the API, plug in a bunch of URLs, generate. You can use an auto GPT system now, right? With a spreadsheet or something, write 5-star reviews for all these websites. I mean, the thing can really start operating on an unimaginable scale.
Right. Yeah, and you tie that together with peak reviews. In other words, the fact that reviews are no longer growing at the rate they were.
From real people, anyway.
From real people. Well, from everybody. The spammers can't even keep up with the decline, right? So, the question is what's next. And, what Google has done in restaurants, for example, is they've highlighted critic reviews. They've gone back to the individual authoritative reviewer at some well-known trusted site and highlighted those. So that's one potential future. Is
except with the decimation of local news, which we'll talk about, there are no more restaurant critics to write reviews in many cities. Well, the weekly publications, a lot of the alternative weekly publications were heavy arts and entertainment coverage sources and wrote a lot of restaurant reviews, and those are gone for the most part. So
there's still at least one, and I would say two operating very strongly here in Portland. So
well,
I think
they're in many places they're gone.
yeah.
Perhaps not Portland, but there
Not
used
to jump
be
ahead to our third our
yeah,
third item.
there used to be like 4 of them in the Bay Area, and
Yep.
I don't know if any of them are still around. I don't think SF Weekly,
Yep.
East Bay Express, The Guardian. There used to be a whole bunch of them, and they're now gone
Yep.
essentially. So
But
back to you, Mike.
Yeah, back to the comment on reviews. Like I think Greg, you've talked about this for a long time. Just that we may be heading more, and we talked about it last week with the Consumer Reports topic. That
Right.
we may be heading more into this world where you're looking at review sites that have brands in order to understand how a brand's product performs in all kinds of places, Amazon, Google, wherever, TikTok, even potentially wherever. And that these sort of critical review sites are likely to have a revival here as a result of AI just sort of overwhelming any kind of filtering or just quality control mechanisms on the part of these e-commerce platforms, or in Google's case, local commerce platforms.
Or what you might have is a situation where low consideration purchases, where people can still sort of rely on reviews in certain categories, but not others. We've talked in the past about the legal. People really respond to reviews for lawyers. I mean, we did the project around lawyers, and reviews were a critical part of the decision about which sites to click on and who to work with. And the incentive to cheat in those categories where there's a very high ticket item is great, and less will you be able to rely on those reviews. I might be able to look at a rest
potentially, but we also saw consumers actually reading the reviews quite frequently. And so if you are a law firm in this case who's playing things a little bit fast and loose, and somehow injecting AI to write your clients' reviews for them, I think it's likely that that's going to blow back in your face if you're losing clients who are actually taking the time to read those, at least the first handful of reviews on a Google business profile. That was people in this category, higher consideration, were not just taking the star ratings at face value. They were tended to dive in and read a few reviews before making a decision.
Although one of the national firms that we uncovered in that research was in the Google My Business Forum, was recently reported as doing massive review gating. So while the reviews were real, they were heavily gated.
They were curated, yeah.
Curated.
Yeah.
So, Back to the Future there as well, right? Just old school ways of achieving positive reviews that are real.
It feels to me, I mean, all the consumer data that continues to come out shows, 98% of people rely on reviews, and reviews are the number one local conversion factor, and people respond to reviews. And it seems like, that is as powerful as ever. We do see sort of a decline in trust of reviews, or more skepticism or more caution, despite the usage numbers. But it feels, I just feel the sense that that there's just more and more garbage online, and you increasingly cannot trust it. I mean, I don't know, I don't remember if I've talked about this publicly, but I think I've talked to you guys about it. My wife and I are looking for a financial planner, and I started to look online at Nextdoor, at Yelp, at Google, and organic results, and there's a lot of information, but it's just not very useful. It's not very helpful. It's superficial, or it's potentially biased. And so I went to an email. I'm part of a group, one of the groups I'm part of online. I went to an email list and I said, hey, does anybody know somebody who fits this description? And I got 10 really strong recommendations, and I've been working through that list and doing phone calls. And so that's really the sort of old fashioned way, Back to the Future, that people may have to start doing things, but that's very hit and miss. And it sort of, the benefit of these massive distributed consumer reviews is that it democratized that kind of information, I fear that we're heading away from that.
We may all end up just asking ChatGPT for the product recommendations and skip reviews altogether. Right. The question is, can ChatGPT identify these fake reviews?
Well, what is it going to use
it's building its own recommendations? Yeah,
it cannot. Right. I suspect it doesn't have that capability. I mean, yes, I'd rather just go to something like ChatGPT and say, give me 3 handyman in 94115 that are the highest rated, and then pursue that rather than going through the nonsense of checking and clicking and reading and clicking and all of that.
I mean, to some extent, the problem that we're seeing is a result of trying to fit reviews across every category. Reviews started in hospitality and food, and they're going to end up there. Like when I travel, I don't use reviews locally to hire service people. I call somebody who I trust and I ask them. I don't use reviews to hire lawyers either, or any doctor, any of that stuff. But I still, when I travel, use reviews to suss out restaurants and those types of things. Perhaps walks that I want to go on, or a hike. So I think that reviews will stay in those areas where they can be useful and trusted, and where I'm not familiar with the lay of the land. But I feel sorry for you, Greg, that you live in an environment where you feel like you have to go to Google to find a frickin' plumber. It's like, gee.
All right.
You're putting your life at risk.
Yeah. Well, so that's originally what social media was supposed to do. In the early days of social media, it was supposed to be a more reliable alternative to get information in some respects, right? You can ask your friends for hotel recommendations, for service provider recommendations, and all of that. But no longer is it. And so
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.